Chapter 2 of What is Past is Prologue.
Of what?
What's Past is Prologue.
Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Ashes and dirt.
Sure it is.
Dust.
What's past is...
Past events are the prologue to the main story.
Because Ashes and Dust was the series or something.
Correct. Ashes and Dust is the name of the series.
Is called Ashes and Dust.
Yep, right.
Not good.
Chapter 2, Stars and Shadows. A month after the first chapter of our story, the royal siblings and Undine explore Waterfall together. The soft grass of Waterfall was like a carpet beneath Frisk's feet, almost making her forget that she was living underground. To her left was a cliff wall of dark rock dotted by bioluminescent plants and bright crystals that lit the way through the caverns. On the right was a vast lake filled with water that glowed brighter than the stones or flora. Lily pads floated on its surface, and the shore was lined with sparse patches of glowing ferns. On the other side of the lake, a bright waterfall cascaded down a rock face and fed the pool with magical water. What made it magical, aside from its color, Frisk wasn't sure about. She wasn't particularly keen on finding out either. For all she knew, it would turn her into a goat or something if she went for a swim in it.
Do it.
That wouldn't be very cool, especially when summer rolled around.
Oh.
She was about to reflect further on the magical nature of the environment when Asriel's voice roused her from her reverie. "Boy, Frisk, are you sure it's safe to go this far off the path?" He sounded worried despite his excitement at the prospect of their little trip through Waterfall. This was understandable since the underground was vast, and one could easily get lost if they strayed from the single road that ran through the inhabited regions. Frisk wasn't worried, though. Undine stood by her side as they walked, and Chara was a meter behind them, right beside her brother. With those two along, nothing could give them trouble. Chara's memory was impeccable, and she had studied the potential natural dangers of Waterfall extensively. Frisk had only known Undine for a month now, but she was certain that the fish monster was more than capable of protecting them from anything unexpected. "We'll be fine," chirped Frisk. "Chara will remember the way." "I mean, of course she will. It's just that we don't know what's out here." Undine looked back and shot Asriel with an accusing glare. "That's why Frisk brought us out here, punk! What are you, too chicken to explore?" "No, I'm just..." Undine scoffed. "Oh, right! You're not scared. You're terrified of going anywhere without Mommy or Daddy."
Ooh.
Frisk looked behind her just in time to see Asriel huff, as only a child with wounded pride could, and puff out his chest. The sight made Frisk giggle, but Asriel was too occupied to notice. "I'm not," he insisted. "I'm the bravest one here. In fact, I'm so brave that I keep my head outside the covers at night." Undine chortled and turned her attention back to the path ahead of them. Frisk was about to do the same, but couldn't resist teasing Asriel one more time. "But Azzy," she said, "isn't that just to look at your glow-in-the-dark stars?" That's just a bonus." At last Chara decided to speak up. "Asriel is very, very brave. If he weren't, I wouldn't have nearly as much chocolate at my disposal." Undine snorted at that remark, though Frisk couldn't tell how she did it with gills. "Sure, brave little chocolate thief. I would tell your dad if it'd do any good." "But you know that it won't," replied Chara with just a hint of smugness. "Azzy, being the great brother he is, will take the fall for me, and Mom and Dad will just give his desserts to me and Frisk for the next week or so. I win either way." "Azzy doesn't win, though," said Frisk. "You know it makes him cry when Mom and Dad scold him for even the slightest thing." Chara cleared her throat indignantly. "Need I remind you that he and I cut a share of the chocolate to you, too? You're not exactly innocent either." This much was true. Asriel's padded feet made him well suited to sneaking out in the middle of the night to raid the pantry for chocolates. And though Frisk tried to discourage him and Chara from their criminal ways, she wasn't about to say no to a cut of the haul. Undine turned her accusing gaze at Frisk. "Are you taking chocolate bribes?" she asked. I'll never get why you love those so much. They make your teeth all gross and sticky. They taste good. They're really good. And they're not just bribes. They're gifts. Undine huffed in disbelief at the depths of Frisk's moral depravity. If I were you, I would turn myself in. It's the only right thing to do. Sometimes I wanna, mumbled Frisk. No, you don't, said Chara, because that gets us both in trouble. It is logically better if only Azzy is taking the blame. That way half as many people are getting blamed.
I love how Cara's like super sticking up for Asriel earlier and then immediately turned around to be like, only blame him.
Mom and Dad are fair. They wouldn't punish you any worse than they would Azzy. It's all relative. No desserts for a week is much worse for me than it is for him. Undine mumbled. No justice for royal brats, I guess, under her breath, before letting the matter drop. Then, in a much more audible tone, she asked Frisk, Do you know where we're going? Of course I do. It's nowhere in particular, just any place interesting. Frisk was almost sure she had told Undine the particulars before they set off, but it didn't hurt to explain again. The underground had been one great big mystery to Frisk ever since the Dreamers adopted her. In fact, she found it more interesting than the surface. Beyond the friendly and peaceable populace, there was a myriad of astounding natural formations not far from the beaten path. And yet in her 3 years here, Frisk had only scratched the surface of what the underground had to offer.
So she's 6 right now and she's been there for 3 years?
Sounds like it. Maybe so. There were miles upon miles of caverns that had been mapped but never settled. These ran deep beneath the mountain, far, far deeper than any monster could say. Today, Frisk had gathered her siblings and her very best friend to go explore Waterfall together, hoping to find something amazing. Perfect! Undine exclaimed with a wide, toothy smile. Guided tours are boring anyway. Into the unknown we go. If it complains, I'll just punch it in the face.
Sounds like a plan.
Frisk only just stopped herself from asking if Undine had ever had a guided tour before. Such a question would, the human assumed, make her think of what she had lost. No point bringing down the mood of their little expedition. What do you think we'll find? Asked Asriel. Chara was quick to speak up before either Frisk or Undine could reply. They have no idea. A better question is, what do we hope to find? Asriel jumped up and down in excitement as he walked, almost tripping. Ooh! I want to find a butterscotch tree so we could bring one home. Then we could have butterscotch whenever we wanted. Frisk couldn't see it, but she was certain Asriel's tail was wagging. Why do you think it grows on trees? Chara asked, the exasperation clear in her voice. Because it's got to come from somewhere. Chocolate comes from trees too, so why not butterscotch? You're not totally wrong about chocolate there, but it's not as simple as that. It is. I'm the prince, so I get to decide these kind of things. Don't be stupid, barked Undine. Everyone knows that butterscotch comes from things in the ground, like carrots. When they're dug up, they're like hard candy, so they get sent to a factory to be melted down. Oh, so that's what Hotland's good for. Yup, Undine said with pride, reveling in her intellectual superiority. We use all that lava to melt stuff down, like raw butterscotch, chocolate, and fish. Why fish? To make fish oil, of course. Frisk smiled at the exchange as they kept walking.
Oh, man.
She knew better, of course, but didn't have a heart to put a stop to their fun. Chara knew better, too, but she seemed too defeated to educate anyone. Undine and Asriel continued to bicker about the nature of sweets as the group walked around the edge of the lake, providing Frisk with endless amusement. They sounded like good friends for a while, and it made Frisk more disappointed that Undine couldn't open up to Asriel like she had to her. Perhaps when he was older they would be close, like Frisk hoped, But that day was yet far off. Now Frisk could see her destination on the other side of the lake, a passage in the rock wall that was lit by waterfalls, shining flora, and radiant stones. This was the beginning of unknown territory for the assembled children, and Frisk's heart hammered with excitement as they approached it. Upon reaching the opposite shore, they all sat down at the edge of the water to rest their weary feet. "Why are we stopping?" grumbled Undine. "I want to get to the exploring already." "We can't all be as tough as our knight in shining armor," replied Frisk. "Walking for hours isn't normal for us." Right, Undine stammered, caught off guard by Frisk's praise. "A knight has to take care of her companions after all." Undine wasn't in any armor at the moment, but with a little magic she quickly corrected that. Her plain clothes turned to metal, and their shape changed until she resembled a miniature knight from Frisk's favorite fairy tales. She left her head uncovered, allowing Frisk to see the proud and appreciative smile that came over her. "Already learning from Gerson, huh?" asked Frisk. "I think you'll really impress him with an attitude like that." Her praise made Undine smile more eager. "You think he'll agree to teach me once he hears about our trip?" "He might. I know I'll tell him about how brave you were and how you kept watch for scary things." At the mention of scary things, Asriel looked concerned. "Are there really scary things down here, Frisk? I didn't know about that when we left." "It'll be fine," Chara assured him. "Dad and Gerson make sure the underground is a pretty safe place. Well, as long as we don't do anything stupid." "Good thing we're all really smart," Asriel said with a nod, his fears quelled by Chara's words. Undine crossed her arms and muttered, "Some of us, anyway." Frisk shot her a look that said, "Please be nice." But Asriel didn't seem to have heard her. His ears clearly weren't as useful as their size would suggest. They sat on the shores of the lake for a little while longer, chatting and appreciating the beauty of the water. After a while, Undine began to look suspiciously at the lake and stood up. "I'm going to see if there's anything in there," she declared. "What do you think there might be?" Frisk asked. Undine crouched down and whispered the answer to her. "You know why. They could be anywhere."
The what?
With that, she leapt into the water with the grace of a dolphin, splashing Frisk with droplets as she vanished beneath the surface. Asriel jumped to his feet, alarmed by her sudden disappearance. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked. "And why did she say there might be something in there?" Frisk shrugged. "Just felt like swimming, I guess. She'll be back. Probably looking for a fish to snack on." But people can't breathe underwater." Chara gently elbowed him in the side to get his attention. "She has gills. Unlike the rest of us, she can breathe underwater." Asriel sighed in relief and sat back down. "Oh, I was afraid there for a minute." They continued resting for a while, watching the still surface of the water as they waited for Undine to return. When she finally resurfaced, she seemed no worse for the wear. Her armor was wet, but that wasn't a problem since it was magic. She didn't seem to care about her now sopping ponytail either. "All clear," Undine said. "Nothing down there, and it's not very deep anyway." "Then I'm ready to go if everyone else is," replied Frisk. Asriel and Chara nodded and rose to their feet. Frisk and Undine once again led the way as they continued towards the tunnel. They had barely taken a few steps when they began to hear a muffled crunching sound. The sudden noise must have startled Undine, for she turned around quicker than Frisk could blink. "What was that?" growled Undine. "It sounded like footsteps on dry leaves." "But there aren't any of those around here," noted Frisk, as she too turned around to face the sound. Chara looked over at Asriel with a suspicious glare, which he returned with wide, pleading eyes. It was only now that Frisk noticed Asriel's cheeks were just a bit bigger than normal, and he was standing stone stiff. "Azzy," sighed Chara, "I can't take my eyes off of you for 1 second, can I?" As he said nothing, confirming Frisk's suspicions. "What are you trying to eat?" hissed Chara. "Open your mouth, now!" Mumbled Asriel, his mouth too full of something to respond properly. "I wasn't asking." Asriel opened his mouth with a bleh sound, revealing the half-chewed remains of an echo flower. Frisk snorted at the sight. It had already stained his tongue blue, like the plants of waterfall. "I really can't take you anywhere, can I?"
That's
groaned
literally
Chara.
like me. I just eat random things.
"I was hungry," whined Asriel. "The butterscotch talk made me want to have a snack." "Well, you better spit it out. We don't know what eating those does to you." What?" "I don't want to do it in front of Undine. That's gross." "She and Frisk had a burping competition a week ago. I don't think you can gross her out." "Yeah, we did," Undine added proudly. "And I won, too." Asriel turned around and spat out the mess of plant matter. It took him multiple tries before Chara was convinced all the flower bits were out of his mouth.
What are you trying to eat? He's like, yeah, this is an echo flower.
Ooh. At last they were able to continue on their way. "How did it taste?" Frisk asked as they approached the edge of the tunnel. Asriel's reply was meek and embarrassed. "Kind of peppery, I guess. Not the best, really." "Thanks for taste testing. Now I know not to eat it either." "Who eats flowers?" Undine inquired. "Like, really, who looks at that and says, 'Oh yeah, that's probably delicious'?" "Azzy, apparently," answered Frisk. "Sometimes he's just curious, and sometimes he thinks they look tasty. Or he's just really hungry." An embarrassed whimper from Asriel prompted Frisk to stop her teasing. The group stepped into the tunnel ahead. It was even darker than the cavern they had come from, but waterfalls, luminescent growth, and gems lit their way without much trouble. The passage was so tall and wide that walking through it was akin to being inside a giant's home. Being beside her siblings and best friend bolstered Frisk's courage, and in the end it was more exciting than scary. Their footsteps, aside from those of Asriel's silent paws, echoed conspicuously down the tunnel. If anything had been living there, it would have noticed their presence for sure. Fortunately, nothing happened. All was quiet, except for the 4 children as they made their way to the other end of the tunnel. They emerged on a ledge overlooking a massive cavern. The ceiling was so high here that darkness obscured any view of the top, but through this darkness shone bright stones on the ceiling far above, twinkling like stars. Beneath this facsimile of the night sky was a vast body of water that stretched off to the children's left as far as the eye could see.
The what? Or something like
The what room? The wishing room?
I don't know, coming out on a ledge where there's water going off as far as you can see? I'm not sure. I mean, it just could be a new place. Gentle waves rose and fell with inexplicable tides against its shore. A natural ramp of earth and rock ran from the ledge down to the land by the water, while on the other side of the cavern was yet another passageway like the one they had just traversed. But for now, the water held their attention. It was like the beginning of an underground sea, and Frisk wondered if that wasn't exactly what it was. "Come on, Undine!" she shouted. "I want to know how deep the water is!" Frisk ran down the natural ramp with Undine close behind. Asriel took a moment to break from his stupor, but he too followed with Chara by his side. The children stopped at the edge of the water, just before the spot where the waves touched the grass. With a loud "Nyah!" Undine jumped in to confront the watery depths and vanished beneath the glowing surface with a mighty splash. Frisk became worried when she didn't emerge after a few minutes. This was an unknown place for them, and wasn't it possible that something horrible was living in that water? Her worries were proved pointless, however, when, after another couple minutes, Undine climbed onto the shore with a still wriggling fish held halfway in her mouth.
I thought she was a fish. Why is she eating fish?
She's a monster. Chara only raised an eyebrow, but Frisk and Asriel stared wide-eyed at the sight of the small animal thrashing to free itself from Undyne's jaws. The spectacle ended when she bit down with her two prominent fangs and put the fish out of its misery before chowing down on it.
My gecko just like...
Yep. Chomp, chomp, chomp. She looked with confusion between Frisk's astounded face and Asriel's wide-eyed, slack-jawed expression as she gulped down the last remnants of her prey. "What?" she asked when her mouth was finally clear. "That butterscotch talk got me hungry too." After wiping a bit of stray fish stuff, Frisk wasn't sure what it was, off her face, Undyne stepped back onto the dry part of the shore. "Anyway," continued Undyne, "it gets deeper and deeper the further out you go. Colder, too. I think I even saw some underwater tunnels." "Wow," whispered Asriel. "That's amazing. I wish I could swim like you." Undyne crossed her arms and looked at him with supreme smugness. "Maybe you can, and you just don't know it yet. How about I toss you in and we test that theory?" Asriel seized up in fright at the mere thought. Frisk could see tears welling up in his eyes, and decided it was time to intervene. "Undyne, don't make my brother all soggy, or drowned. He still can't swim." "Just kidding," huffed Undyne. "I would have fished him out, though, if he had agreed." Chara gave her head a grim shake. "Considering what you did to that fish, I'm not very reassured by that. We should keep going." "Give me a minute," piped Frisk. "I want to look a little more." Chara calmed down Asriel's nerves with some careful words. Once he stopped trembling, they all sat down by the shore and looked out across the water. It was a beautiful sight. Bright stones on the cavern roof miles above looked like the little points of light that had dotted the surface's sky at night. The luminescent water and glowing plants around lent an otherworldly quality to the experience. Frisk imagined that she was in one of her magical fantasy worlds, gazing out over the sea during a clear night. In a way, she was. Most children would love to be in Frisk's position right then, exploring a magical land with their best friends. "Hey, Azzy," she said after a while of looking. "Want to wish upon a star?" Asriel looked at her, confused. "Huh? I know these aren't real stars, but they're pretty close. People say that if you make a wish on one, it'll come true. Want to try it?" Asriel thought for a moment, and then looked over at Chara. "You want to make a wish first?" he asked her. "You're really smart, so I bet you know the best thing to wish for." Chara looked up at the stars. They twinkled and gleamed in the vast darkness above them. She hesitated. For a long moment there was only the sound of breathing and the gentle lapping of water. Just as Undyne started to fidget, Chara's voice rang out through the cavernous depths, quiet but firm. "I wish..." She swallowed before continuing. "I wish that things could be like this forever. That we could always be together, and that nothing would ever tear us apart." She turned to Asriel, a faint smile on her face. His eyes grew moist. There were no tears, but Frisk heard a little sniffle as he wiped them dry. "That's my wish, too." Frisk smiled. "It's a good one." After Asriel calmed himself, they got up and continued down the next passage. It crisscrossed with many others and confused all but Chara, who assured them that she would remember the way back just fine. Eventually they came to another cavern that was dominated by what Frisk would describe as a swamp. The ground was an earthy layer of soil, dotted by glowing pools of water upon which lily pads floated. Tall, bright ferns and the occasional echo flower made up the majority of the plant life. Toads and frogs ceased their croaking and retreated into their pools upon the children's approach, bathing the marsh in a silence broken only by the dripping of water from stalactites that hung far above the pools. Much of the ground was damp, but there was a single path through the marsh that was just dry enough to spare their shoes from getting covered in mud. On the other side of the swamp was a massive cave mouth. Beyond its looming arch, the crystals and growths that permeated Waterfall seemed to be entirely absent. Even stranger was that none of the light from the swamp penetrated beyond that natural aperture. They stood at the threshold, just before the wall of darkness, and contemplated the curious phenomenon. Frisk hesitantly reached a hand into the opening and lost sight of it completely, but felt only empty air. She jerked it back out of the dark and saw that it was unmarred and still attached to her arm.
It's a doom hole.
No, it sounds like...
A doom hole would have cut it off.
It sounds... Well, there's the cavern where you reach the Temmie village. Then there's the one after it that you have to keep turning the lights back on. Yeah.
The lantern?
And then when you get out of that one, it's completely dark except there's a little ring of light around your head. And then you walk all the way to the end.
Oh, that room.
And there's an echo flower that says behind you.
And then there's
and stuff.
Ooh.
Also, there's grass. If there's a tiny ring of grass at the edge, then...
What's with this thing? Asked Undyne. It's like it eats light or something. That's a scary idea, replied Frisk. But yeah, it kind of does. Asriel held out an open palm and created a little magical luminescence in it, not unlike the sort of nightlight a child would have by their bedside. Well, I'm not afraid of it, he declared. I'd like to see it eat this light. With that, he took a few steps forward and vanished into the dark before anyone could stop him. Not even his magic light was visible. Frisk and Chara called out for Asriel to come back, but to no avail. He either couldn't hear them, or had been somehow incapacitated. A pang of guilt racked Frisk's heart. Asriel was probably terrified right now. It was all her fault for having brought him here. She and Chara began to step forward, intending to try to rescue their brother from whatever he had gotten himself into. But Undyne got in front of them and put a hand on each of their shoulders, stopping them in their tracks. No, she said, I'll do it. You two are important. Can't have you gone missing too. Then with a look at Frisk, she added, Besides, I'm the knight in shining armor, right? This is my job. She turned and jumped into the wall of shadows, her deafening "Nyah!" cut off midway as she vanished.
Wow.
She is kind of right, Chara noted. I'm probably the only one of us who remembers the way back in case we need to get help. Stepping inside would have been reckless on my part. You're worried about Azzy, replied Frisk. Nothing wrong with that. There is if I let it make me do stupid things. I can't help anyone if I do something dumb like that. Sometime only your soul knows what's right, and you have to let it guide you. Chara had no response, so the two of them paced and worried as they waited for Undyne to return with Asriel. Frisk grew closer and closer to stepping inside with every passing second. It felt wrong to be standing out there doing nothing while her brother was in trouble. Her heart soared when Undyne stepped back out. She was carrying a curled-up, bawling Asriel in her arms. Despite his crying, he seemed unharmed, even when Undyne let him drop to the ground with a gentle thud. Frisk and Chara rushed to his side. The pair alternated between consoling him and asking or demanding an explanation for what had happened beyond the darkness. Each of them took turns petting his head as they spoke, as much for their own comfort as his. After a while, Asriel's crying turned to sniveling, and he was able to respond. It was so dark. I couldn't hear or see anything, and then something picked me up. You're safe now, Chara assured him. That was just Undyne picking you up so she could get you out. It was smart of you not to move much, Frisk added. Otherwise, Undyne might never have found you. I don't think he moved at all, said Undyne. He was standing still as a statue when I bumped into him in the dark, shaking like a leaf, too. Statues don't shake like leaves, replied Chara. Shut up! You know what I mean! We should go home, Frisk said before Chara could retort. As he's all scared now. Chara nodded and picked Asriel up, slinging the trembling ball of fur over her shoulder. Good idea. I'll take the first turn carrying him. Frisk nodded back, and the group set off for home.
I want to go.
Undine grumbled about stopping their expedition for a little wuss who's afraid of the dark, but accompanied them nonetheless. The two sisters were even able to talk her into carrying Asriel when their own legs and shoulders were too sore to do so. With tired, aching feet, they arrived back at the palace. It was well past lunch now, and Toriel would undoubtedly be worried about them. There they parted ways with Undine, for she needed to head back to Gerson's for her own supper. Frisk invited her to join them, saying that her parents would love to hear how she saved Asriel, but she would have none of it. She did, however, ask to talk to Frisk alone before they entered the palace. Frisk obliged, and Chara went on ahead to get Asriel back home. So what did you need me for? Frisk asked. Undine fidgeted, looking abashed as she replied. Just wanted to thank you for bringing me along. It made me feel useful. That gave Frisk the warmest, fuzziest feeling inside. She had been worried that Undine was more annoyed than anything. That's great, she said with a smile. I hope you had fun, too. It was great to have you along. Yeah, it was fun. A nice break from everything else. Frisk's smile became a concerned look. Undine sounded troubled, something Frisk hadn't expected on today of all days. What's going on? Not enjoying living with Gerson? Not exactly. It's just that I can't get him to agree to train me. Why not? I don't know. Every day I ask, and every day he asks the same question. What question? Undine put on her best old man voice. It sounded something like the creaking of an old wooden house. Why do you want that, lass? Frisk giggled at the impression, but quickly snapped back to a serious demeanor. So what do you answer? Tell the truth, that I want to make them pay for what they did. And he doesn't like that? He kind of shakes his head all sad-like, and that makes me sad too, so we don't talk about it for the rest of the day. Maybe he doesn't like the answer. What better answer could there be? Frisk thought hard, pondering all the stories she had read and heard about heroes and their motivations. Well, I think if I told you an answer, that would be like cheating on a test. Maybe you should ask Gerson what his answer would be. That's a good point, murmured Undine. I guess I never really asked. She burst into the wide, toothy grin that Frisk had come to know and love in just a short couple of months. Thanks, Frisk! You're a great friend! I'll ask him tomorrow! Good luck!
It's been 1 month, but it's been a couple of months. Because didn't they first meet her a month ago?
Uh-oh. Let's just check here. A month after the chapter of our first story. Yes. All right. Could be a bit of time confusion
Not
here.
Daddy's story. You aren't allowed to.
I'm sorry.
Say small things.
Yes. You guys are pretty good at critiquing time patterns. Good luck, Frisk called as Undine ran off, much too excited for the obligatory goodbye hug that Frisk usually insisted on. Frisk stood alone on the steps of the palace, and after Undine vanished into the distance, she stepped into the warm light of the royal building. Her hearth, home, and family awaited.
Keep reading.
But that is all.
We have lots of time.
But what? It's 9:30.
Yeah,
That
it's
is like-
only 9:30.
That is like 0 time.
No, that's like a lot of time. We still got lots of time.
But that's the only 2 that, unless something else has been posted.
I thought there were like 10 of the prologue.
Well, the others are posted only like on Google Docs.
Asriel was curled up. I think somebody mentioned, what if Asriel curled up, like,
Yeah.
one time?
Just a curled up ball
Wait,
of
what
goat.
if Asriel was like a cat just curling up in front of the fire?
You're saying that you would like to pet the head of a crying goat and console him?
How about, like, a sleeping goat that's happy?
Can you be happy while you're sleeping?
Well, you can...
He might not be happy if he wakes up to patting while he's trying to sleep.
Well, if he was trying,
Frisk.
then yes!
Frisk, please stop patting me. I'm trying to sleep. Chara, please. I'm sorry, but I just can't help myself. You are just so pettable, Azzy.
Did you say Asri?
Azzy. Azzy is a nickname for Asriel,
Yeah, I noticed.
which I use sometimes when I'm petting him and he is trying to sleep.
Assy. This time Car says Assy, not Reed.
Doggy.
Then again, though, Reed is not canon, is it?
Nothing's really canon. Asriel is canon,
I
yeah.
mean, but Ashley
Yeah.
Even Chara is not canon.
What's the true
Well,
name?
too bad.
It's true, it is the truth.
Haha.
Okay.
Yeah, but how do
You
they
should
know
take
that?
a poll of every author you read their story of and say, how do you pronounce the word Kara?
Why?
Because I still need to figure this out.
I did see a poll somewhere, and I think
Oh, really?
Chara was probably the top pronunciation.
Please cut that out of the recording
And,
before you publish it.
It's true. And Chara, I think, was the next
Yeah.
most. Oh no. The
So what?
the link to the Google Docs is no longer here.
Oh.
Well, maybe I can still sneak it.
Yeah, just look in your Google Docs history.
All right, goat herder / Dawn.
Go,
We're going-
alright, go,
We're
go,
trying
go,
to
go,
hack into your
go.
hack into your
These last
Google.
goats.
Daddy, how are you trying to hack?
Not hack. I'm just
Go back to
I'm
your-
trying to look at an old link to see if I can get back to
Go,
it.
try the best.
Uh-oh.
Access denied? or something?
No, it's a random chapter of. Okay, what is this? It's a chapter, but it's not here. I mean, it's not
Go
the
to
next
Google
one.
Docs history.
I don't know that I can.
Like, go to your history and then find Google Docs.
No.
that you can-
Go to Google Docs and it'll say your recently viewed documents.
Or
Or if they're titled like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, then search for Chapter 1 Docs.
I don't know if it was.
If
All
you
right.
viewed it, you can find it again.
All right, we may birthday list 2020.
This video
My story on Google Docs.
This video comes with a tutorial on how to recover.
This appears to have all of Flying Unhindered's links in here. But...
Mine.
All right, let's try a random link. Nope, that's my story. Nope, that's Jeff's story. Okay.
So you're gonna,
Alexander, Rachel, Paul, Anna, Ellie, Frisk. Much later.
what is
All right,
that?
that was Jeff's story.
That must have been the outline.
Oh,
That was the chapter titles, or.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure did.
Okay, it looks like
How did you?
It
come
looks
up with
like
the names?
Goat Herder has successfully hidden away the remaining prologue bits.
I just like the word
Where?
goat.
Well, you got one.
You find them?
Well, like the description of his channel on Discord used to have links to all the things. Yeah. But he has hidden it. I guess he is now publishing the official versions on AO3.
Well, is he listening to these recordings?
Not yet.
Well,
I mean, I suppose at this very minute he is, because he is. But at this very moment also, I'm
hi
just
from
recording.
The past.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hopefully by the time you're reading this,
Listening.
You'll know to put lots more fuzzy goats in your story.
Fuzzy goats might be, yeah. Unexpected goat angst chapter.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Where did you find that?
I'm just looking back on
Unexpected
previous
goat
posts.
angst?
Yeah.
Well, it better come with the...
It's probably from Scary Things.
Ashes and dust. I can't guarantee
if
where
as
this
long
is
as it
going.
turns out okay,
Is that a chapter name?
we better have good goats. Good goats, not bad goats.
Not flower goats.
Oh.
Flower goats are
No,
not
just
good.
good goats.
All right. Well, I can find individual
Chapter?
chapters, but I
We'll
can't
find
find the
chapters.
table of contents
So you
anymore.
better go find each chapter.
So, well, I'm not sure I can do that.
Well,
Oh,
we
wait,
can
this
have-
is the one we just read.
Oh,
Stars and
chapter
shadows.
3. Stars and... What's our next one called? Shadows and more
Fully
shadows. Oh, that's what
updated
shadows
prologue. Aha.
You
Ah
found
ha
it?
ha. Ah ha ha ha.
Cut this out of the
I
recording.
mean,
so
yes,
we
no,
don't-
I haven't found anything at all.
So chapter 3.
Prologue, chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
How would you find
Wow.
them?
Oh,
Next.
Oh, I just found an old link that goes to the table of contents.
that works.
And
All right.
from there you can
I'm
get
I'm
every-
keeping this, goat herder, until you delete it.
Read.
No, we
Read.
can't. We can't read
Yeah, you
anymore.
can. That's why you were looking for this. So we can read more.
No, I
I'm
was
just
looking
gonna
for it
keep
just
saying
because.
goat until you tell me this.
Can I wonder if I can tell how many words there are. I don't know that I can. Do. All right. Wow, this next chapter is 13 pages
I
long.
just like the idea of a curly Asriel.
Read some of it, Daddy.
Wait,
I wanna see how many
pages. That's like Emily's chapter. That's
Well, I'll tell you how many Stars and Shadows
Well,
was.
Okay, 13 pages.
Maybe. If I
My
will.
writing is at least 5,000.
Come on, Google Docs,
Emily,
work with
a
me.
chapter of Undertale is like 6.
Oh, chapter of Undertale is a lot shorter though.
No, so like it's like 2 chapters of Undertale.
Do. Okay, where does it show me how many pages I'm on? Google Docs, please.
Quick
All right,
count.
16. Got it. So what we just read was 16. Next one will be 13.
Alright, so read some of
Okay,
it.
No, we can't. It took us like 45
So
minutes.
mine would
Wait,
be
what's our recording
45.
length at the moment? 45 minutes. Exactly. Yep.
Well, then
it
keep
would probably
reading.
be like 5,500 or something.
But this is an unofficial hidden secret
So?
chapter.
Yeah, you can't record it without his permission, but hi from the past. We know that in the future you're going to send a thing that says you can record this.
What?
So
You
I'm
can
talking to
record
him
the
and
To get permission to record the secret chapter?
you may as well
I mean-
already start reading it because you know he's going to give permission in the future.
He may not. He may say that this is a wanton outrage and an insult and a slap in his face.
Private recording and
for-
send it only to him.
It might still be that.
We could do a live.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I see what you're saying. You don't want to post an audio recording of a chapter that's not actually posted yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be bad. You guys haven't read this yet, but here's a recording of it. Of a chapter that hasn't been written yet. By Goat Herder.
I just like that name.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you approve.
No, when you say goat herder,
I
I
didn't
think
look. I'm not on the
Daddy,
description, right?
when you say
used
goat herder, I think of like the goat farm we were talking about and how's the like ratio of Asriel to Chara.
There's a goat. Oh.
All right. I guess we're done. Thank you for enjoying this story about goats and petting sad goats,
I like
making sad goats
And
happier.
illegally finding, or not illegally
And
finding all
please
those
enjoy
secret
this
things.
tutorial on how to find Google Docs.
Which
Well, I mean,
That wasn't much
yeah,
of a
my
tutorial.
incredible hacking skill was reading through old messages until I found a link
Wow.
to the table of contents.
wow.
That's not exactly like top tier
Professional.
hacking skills. Actually, I mean, it kind of is. It's a little bit of, I mean, sometimes when you're doing real hacking, you're just kind of going through stuff and looking for ways in.
Anyway, also, have you heard
Justice, strength, the surface, judgment, spider's parlor, the spear of justice, Friday night, a knight's pledge, MTT brand misery, greater sires, omen.
What is
No, what
this?
is this?
Those were the next chapter titles.
Of the prologue?
What is
Yes.
this called, this chapter?
I want to see.
Those were the chapters.
No, what is, what? Those were the chapters?
Those were the chapter names, yes.
Oh, wow.
I thought those were the tags.
Nope.
So what was the first one?
Justice is the next one. I mean, we started with Innocence, and then Stars and Shadows. Next is Justice.
Oh, boy. This is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Have you read it all?
No.
Are you going to?
Probably.
I like the invention of the curly Asriel.
Great. I don't know that he was I guess he was curly.
Yes, he was curly!
Yep.
I
I remember reading a story where it was sort of stated that monsters, since they have so little physical matter, are really light. Like Frisk could grab Asgore's leg and just lift him up off the ground easily because it's just, he's all magic, not much weight to him. So maybe Asriel is just a
So you can just pick up
bundle of magical air.
But for Undone,
And there's also a monster, so to him he would be pretty heavy, probably.
Probably, perhaps.
That means it would be quite easy for what's her name? Undyne to bench press all the people in Undertale.
No, because Undine is a monster.
At the end, yeah, but she's also really strong, so it'd be super easy for her to bench press all the people.
Yeah,
But in this story, Gerson is the strongest monster in the underground.
So far.
What if Asriel was a
Right
baby, and then you had him curled up, and he was like, I don't know, half a foot in diameter. Circle.
That's the that's the story.
But no, but like picture like a soft fuzzy
Picture
Asriel,
a
but he's
picture.
tiny and he's curled up, and it's a goat.
Oh,
Baby goat.